Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. What do we mean when we say that? Well, we mean everything when we say that. So we can't talk about that in every single episode. So every week we pick one thing and we talk about that as a way to build a better life. And we hope that it resonates with you wherever you happen to be. And who do I mean by we? Myself, just JD, K. Wyneken, and my co-host, my colleague, my friend, my business partner, the straw that stirs the drink here in the Staying Power universe, always Ashley Knebel. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, good. Glad to have you here. And today we are going to be talking about something that a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, but oftentimes in ways, as you're going to learn, that don't quite fit. We're going to talk about trauma today, and we're actually going to be talking about it with somebody who knows a lot about it. We'd like to welcome our guest, Dr. Denise Haselwood, to the show. Hello, Denise.
Hey,
how are you?
Hello.
Good. Thanks for being in here. How you feeling? It's kind of a new thing for you being in
totally
here.
New thing for me. So I'm a little nervous, but yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's introduce you effectively here. Okay, so for our listeners, Denise Haselwood, she's a keynote speaker and trauma psychologist. Her focus is to inspire first responders, military and medical professionals, and their leaders to heal from the hidden toll of high levels of stress and trauma. And there are high levels of stress and trauma in that world. She has more than 2 decades of experience as a psychologist, an instructor, a coach, a mentor, and she brings a rare blend of scientific expertise, real world understanding, and playful humor to her work. And we've seen a lot of that just in our conversations with her before the show, all of those things. Through this work, Denise hopes to support those, especially those on the front lines of crises, towards reclaiming their well-being. Her message is clear, and this is going to drive our conversation today, I think. Trauma is an injury, not a life sentence, and healing is not only possible, but transformative. Clients and audiences leave her sessions with practical tools, renewed hope, and the courage to face challenges with clarity and strength. And as I mentioned, she's a keynote speaker, and she's put one together for first responders, I understand, that she's going to be delivering here in the not too distant future. So we're going to want to hear about that at the end of the show.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So this is going to go really well with our listeners. They're used to tuning in and hearing about all the different ways that we can build resilience. And sometimes we talk about very subtle things that people can do. We're talking about a biggie, right? Trauma. So let's talk a little bit about, to start, what is it and how should we really be talking about trauma when definitions sometimes can be so broad and sometimes kind of reductionist, I guess, could say?
To some degree.
Okay.
I wish there was a clear objective. If you have this experience, then it equals trauma. But unfortunately, it depends on the person. And so really, the American Psychological Association talks about trauma as anything that overwhelms the person to the degree that they cannot work their way through it. Because our brain and our body are actually designed to work its way through whatever experiences that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we're designed to heal from trauma. And so if something gets in the way of that, you're not able to work through whatever experiences that you've had, well, then now you have the experience of trauma. And the science is telling us, and the modern science that allows us to do like MRIs and to see kind of what's going on in the nervous system, we've also learned that it gets stuck in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's your brain and it's your body, which is why we also see a lot of behavioral things that show up for people. They get short, they get snappy. They just don't act like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're talking about first responders and military and people who literally deal with life and death issues, true life and death issues every day, it becomes even more so because it stacks. And so the brain and the body, they don't have a chance to heal. It just stacks.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that gets stuck in the body, the worse they feel.
Worse it gets. Right. And so it would seem to me that what can end up happening then is a ways down the line. These are careers, right? We're talking about. Then things start not going the way maybe perhaps they were trained or told it was going to go, or they anticipated it was going to go, because these types of traumas can be so unique
Yep.
Each response is its own thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times when people say trauma, they think about those big, terrible things that have just completely ruined someone's life. Saw a
Mhm.
meme the other day, like there's a before and an after. Before the car accident, after the car accident, before the house fire, after the house fire. Well, people who are repeatedly exposed to things can also be overwhelmed by something. And then they
Mm.
don't have that. Sometimes it's validating to be able to be like, that was the thing that changed my life. My life blew up right there, and
Mhm.
nothing has been the same since.
Mhm.
But when it's a gradual shifting and a gradual changing, people can feel a little crazy
Mm.
because all of a sudden people are like, "Man, what's wrong with you?" And you're like, "Nothing." And then everybody's saying that, and you're like, "Stop saying that. I'm fine." Oh, but you're not.
Right.
But it's that slow and gradual change that's really hard for us to notice.
Mhm. Until it's clearly bothering us or
Right.
debilitating us on some
Sure.
level.
Right.
That's so affirming to hear because, some people, they're going through their everydays and some of it might be like grandiose and tumultuous and it's very noticeable. But if they're going through smaller versions of a trauma and it's so continual, it becomes like the norm for them. And so then to have the surrounding people be like, hey, what's going on with you? You're acting a little strange, or, we're noticing this. That has to be so frustrating for a person to be like, but this is just normal. Like, I don't know what to do with this because this is my situation and I deal with it every day. And this is just where I live.
Mhm.
And then to have somebody come back and say that there's something wrong with that. What is somebody in that circumstance like? What do they do with a situation like that if they're like, this is my norm and it's always traumatic and every day it's a new traumatic experience because of the situation I'm in?
The life of every first responder. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Learning how to cope and creating conditions, I call it space, for the brain and the body to do what it wants to do anyway, which is heal. So if you think about a physical injury, the goal is to heal.
Mhm.
And, you get a scratch from the berry bushes or something in the garden, your skin automatically heals itself. The really wild thing is that if you break a bone and nobody resets it, it'll still heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just heal
Mhm.
it poorly. And so that's what starts to happen. And so when trauma starts to build up in the brain, it starts to build up in the body because of this repeated exposure to hard things, you feel uncomfortable and we automatically want to move away from discomfort.
Mhm.
So, our culture says, well, let's have a beer, you'll feel better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure, for the moment. But over time, we start to, again, the break heals not in a good way. And so we
Mhm.
find coping strategies that make the uncomfortable in the body stop. Well, your question, Ashley, is, well, what's the good thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
The thing to do is find things that soothe the discomfort. So kind of think about you spent the whole day doing something really physical, like helping a friend move, and your body's just like shot, and you're sweaty and you're gross. And you go in, you get in that warm shower, and you kind of go, oh.
That's a good feeling.
That's what we want to approximate. And so that might mean take that hot shower and, stay in there an extra 5 minutes and just feel the water and the warmth of it soaking into your skin and your muscles. It might mean you call up your favorite person and you make plans, or you have a conversation on the way home, or you put on your favorite fluffy slippers and walk around the house and pay attention to your feet and how comfy and great it feels. There's nothing wrong with going home and checking out, reading a book, playing some video games, and kind of just stepping away from the stress.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that if we do a lot of stepping away, but we never step back in, we're not helping ourselves heal. And so it's also kind of like sticking your toe in the water and just checking. Does that still feel yucky? Yeah. Okay. Well, can I sit here in the yucky for just a second? Can I talk to my friend, my favorite person, my partner, my dog about it
Mhm.
so that it starts to feel better? Dogs are great listeners. They also think
Mhm.
you're fabulous.
Yeah.
So there's no judgment.
Yeah.
It's great.
Can't say that about cats.
Yeah.
I have one. Not the same.
It's not. It's not. But it does create an interesting conversation within yourself. So if you are talking to your cat and then you're taking on the judgment and you're going, yes, you're right, I should have handled that differently, go check with the dog and make sure that's true.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Valid point.
Well, and I think I love what you're saying because it cuts past, I think, what the simple thing a lot of people do, whether they're first responders or not, and that is whatever the survival strategy is.
Right.
For many, it's like, well, I don't have time. And I can see for first responders who know how important their job is,
Mhm.
I just got to dig into work more.
Yes.
I got to disconnect from that stuff more to do my job. Or it could be shutting down. It could be avoiding those emotions. As you mentioned, it could be medicating those emotions with alcohol or, some other substance or some other activity or behavior, all those things. So you're suggesting kind of almost like a hopping from one lily pad to the other, just gently,
Mhm.
right? Keeping your foot there and
Mhm.
coming back to it, but stepping away from it when you need to intentionally.
And when you can.
Right.
So if you're an ER provider, nurse, doctor, anybody in their situation, because those are chaotic and stressful places to work. First responders, military, you just have a lot of stress in your life because you care about a lot of people or you're caring for a parent or your kids. It's really stressful. You can't just be like, and I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back. That's not always an option. And so it is also making sure that you set time to remember to go back and feel what needs to be felt in your body
Mm-hmm.
or to move. There's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of research out there, good research and bad, but the predominant good research says that when you move your body, it is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So high intensity exercise that does not cause harm to your body, please, not harm to your body, can be very helpful to the nervous system because it allows for tension and then it allows for release.
Mm.
You can also do that on purpose, just sitting in your car, eyes open while driving, but breathing in and breathing out completely. Feel how your muscles relax with a full exhale.
Mm-hmm.
You can take your hand and make a fist, squeeze it tight, count to 10, and then relax and feel the contrast. And you can do that starting at the top of your head and work your way down. There's some
Mhm.
fabulous apps out there. This is what we call progressive muscle relaxation. There's lots of great apps that'll walk you through a lot of these, where you pay attention to your body, you tighten, and you relax, and you notice the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
You're not avoiding the emotion, but you're not like dwelling on and replaying, because that's the other thing about trauma. It wants you to replay.
Oh, yeah.
Replays don't always help.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I think that's also a misconception about trauma is that I have to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to tell the story.
Why do people do that? That is very common. I've noticed where people go through something traumatic and then they've always claimed that, oh, it's very healing to talk about it, which maybe to an essence degree it is.
Mhm.
But after 25, 30 times, is it really healing, or is there something that maybe they're still searching for while speaking about that trauma that is not concluded yet?
Yes. So diagnostically, we don't say someone has PTSD until they've been experiencing symptoms for a month. In the first week, I got nothing for you. So you can be having flashbacks, you can be having nightmares, your body can get tense, you can flinch at startling sounds. You can, if you've been in a car accident, not want to get in the car or drive down the hill or come to a complete stop with a big vehicle behind you. All because of what happened. And your brain and your body are trying to sort out all that's stuck. And we know that you've completed that process when you can drive down the road and be okay.
Hmm.
We people doing diagnosing things, give you a whole week of that. I'm sorry to say, because it can be a really awful week. But you get a week before anybody's going to try and tell you that you're not okay and that something's wrong and that something is stuck.
Mm.
Now, as civilians, that works out real great because we don't usually have repeated trauma showing up in our lives. And that's for that big moment where, everything changed. We're going to give you a week to let yourself sort through it. Give yourself permission not to sleep well, to be a little grumpy and a little irritable, but also recognize, hey, I want my people around me, or I want my dog around me, whatever those things are that you need. But Ashley, you were talking about those situations that are just kind of toxic. It's a little harder to gauge the timeline of when that became trauma and when you should be, and I put that in air quotes, should be over it. Because there wasn't an ending.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't a moment in time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we can talk about things. And for some people, telling the story is very therapeutic because their brain then works through it and the body releases as they talk. And often, if you can have them moving, like go for a walk and tell that story,
Mhm.
even more happens in the body. And talking about it in that sense is very helpful. But like you say, they told the story 25 times with the same amount of energy. Brain doesn't know that we're not reliving it. And so it's
Mhm.
entirely possible that we're re-traumatizing.
Right. Right.
But in our culture, we don't know anything other than talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Tell me what happened.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the person who's dealing with whatever they're dealing with may not actually have words.
Yeah, it's so tricky because Ashley and I talk about this in other contexts as well. Is the brain is such a powerful thing, both for good and for quote unquote evil in this sense, because it can really hijack us, even when we're in the middle of doing things that we think and in some ways might be helpful, maybe for the mind or for the body, but they can do a lot. I mean, can you talk a little bit here before our first break?
Mhm.
Just a little bit about that hijacking, what the brain can do and what it does to things like our ability to see that we're in a ongoing traumatic situation, or that our memory of something may not be exactly the way it
Mhm.
was. What's the relationship there?
The brain and body, their sole purpose in life is to keep us alive, to survive,
Mm-hmm.
which means that we can adapt to a lot. And so the big thing that happens, that's pretty easy for everybody to acknowledge. The things that happen that are more subtle, the brain's like, no, I got this. I'm going to do this. See, it's better. Oh, I'm going to do this. See, it's better. I'm going to do this. See, it's better. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, how did I get here?
Mm.
I'm not me anymore. But all those changes were so small and so subtle. And because the brain is focused on surviving, you kind of miss some of the other information.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it also changes the way the emotion of it changes the way you remember the story.
Oh man, which can probably create its own
So
set of hurdles
no
for
kidding.
getting assistance. Okay. All right. Well, we're off to a rollicking start here. This is great. We will be back after our first break here on Staying Power with Dr. Denise Haselwood. We're talking about really digging into stuff around trauma, and it's about first responders, but it's also about all of us, right? So we'll come back with more then, and we're also going to come back with our weekly segment. This week it is 2 minutes of triumph. We'll be back here in just a second on Staying Power.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Alternative Talk 1150. It's good for what ails you. This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA.
Welcome back to Staying Power. Just JD here with always Ashley.
Is that going to be our thing now?
I think so, at least for a little while. We'll ride that horse until it doesn't have any energy anymore. Anyway, we are here visiting with Dr. Denise Haselwood. And while we're certainly laughing, we're talking about a serious subject, an important subject. But what we're going to get into here in this second part of the show is, after everything dire that we just laid out in the first part, we're going to talk about why there's a lot of hope and a lot of healing that can be done. And it's actually more accessible than we might think it is. But before we get there, let's do our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take 2 minutes to talk about something that happened during the week that was either a triumph or a terror, all in the name of being more vulnerable, connecting, and showing that we're all kind of doing this life thing together. This week, it is 2 minutes of triumph. Here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Every time. Both of you. It's so funny.
We love the yes.
Yes, we love
Eric
the
and
yes.
I love the yes. Ashley, as always, you are up first.
Oh, gee, thanks. All right. Well, my triumph this week actually it's very close and dear to my heart because my dad and I, we go way back with our passion and love for cars and racing. And recently he got a Corvette. It was an older one, it's
Ooh.
2007. It's a beauty. I'm a big fan. And it's like his little toy, gives him some fun and relief and joy in life and whatnot. And I actually finally got to go riding with him in that vet.
How fun.
It was fantastic.
Nice.
Now I want to drive it. I have not been able to yet, but maybe next time.
Is he not allowing you to drive it yet?
You know what? I didn't ask because I wanted him to have the full experience of just his daughter enjoying the ride.
Oh,
along.
daughter
Yeah.
points.
That's right.
Daughter
But
points.
it was so much fun. And it was a very bonding moment because this has been like a long-term goal of his to have a vet. His parents loved vets. And so it kind of runs in the family. So
Mhm.
it was really cool to see a dream of his come true and then to be able to participate in that. So
Oh, very nice.
that's my triumph.
That's great. My triumph had more to do with kind of this internal realization that I had this week. Listeners know that I work with a health coach, my buddy Sean Ferguson down in LA. So having a conversation with him the other day, and I realized in almost like one moment that I had somehow shifted away from kind of a hopeful, positive mindset about possibility into kind of a scarcity mindset in various parts of my life. And it was really slowing me down. And he caught that and he encouraged me to just intentionally shift the other direction. And this was a couple days ago. And it's amazing what a little shift can do just to be, okay, yeah, I can feel the scarcity there, the concern I have about A, B, and C. But how about if I just go, this is a possibility. Let me lean into this a little bit and I can work through it. I don't have to wait for something to happen. I can actually do something. Sounds sort of what we're talking about on some level. Right?
Yes.
Denise seems to be nodding across the other side of the table. So the fact that I was able to realize that and experience some manifest differences as a result was a big triumph this week. And it's one I didn't even know that I needed to have. And it was great. So Denise, you can play too. If you'd like, would you like to jump in? Do you have a triumph that you can?
My triumph is I'm sitting here.
There you go.
Oh, we love that.
There we go.
We're glad that you're here.
Yeah, we're
honestly,
glad.
that's a shared triumph.
Yeah, this is a new thing for you.
Oh, it is a new thing for me.
You wouldn't know it.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Wouldn't know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's it going? You having fun?
I'm having fun.
Okay, good. Good. We're talking about important stuff here. And I have to say, and I think Ashley, you would agree, I really appreciate the approach that and the attitude through which you're bringing this, because I sense that not only do you have this appreciation of how important all of this is, but there's also kind of a clarity to your thinking and your feeling about this. Like, look, you can do something about this.
Absolutely. You can.
Right. And it's all around you.
Mhm.
Right. So let's shift into that as we go with this. We've talked a lot in the first segment about the challenges and what this can do and how tricky this can be. Let's talk about why thoughts and behaviors change and why there is hope. Trauma obviously changes our reactions, our relationships, the ability to feel safe and calm and all of that. But as you said, our brains and our bodies are wired to handle this and to adjust and change.
Yep.
When I mention that, what comes to mind for you? Where do you want to go with it?
My first thought is, people who have trauma and live with trauma, there's this myth around it that says, shh, don't talk about it.
Mhm.
Pretend you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're afraid of it. And that's why I appreciate you guys inviting me in, because we're talking about something that people don't like to talk about. They're afraid to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're really good as humans. We're really good problem solvers. First responders are the best of the problem solvers. It's literally their day job. And the people who care about them want to help, want to solve the problem, want to take away the pain, want to take away the discomfort, want their person back.
Mm-hmm.
And strangely enough, I'm not going to completely give away my age, but I'm going to date myself. The diagnosis of PTSD was only really acknowledged and written down in my lifetime, our
Mhm.
lifetimes,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
So really what happened, so a quick history lesson, Vietnam vets, a decade after they come back from Vietnam, so now we're in the 80s, they have all these symptoms. And medical professionals are like, what do we do? And so they do what they always do. They collect the symptoms. They're like, oh, my guy has it, and your guy has it, and that guy has it. Well, let's give it a name. And then we'll all know what to do because we'll come up with how to treat it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have post-traumatic stress disorder because they didn't have a way to fix it, make it better, heal it, the word. And so they medicated it. And then in the 80s, and then in the late 80s, and then into the 90s, now we have evidence-based strategy starting to show up about how to heal trauma. So first came exposure therapy, which is exactly what it sounds like. It works really well for phobias. So if you're afraid of spiders, maybe we start by showing you a picture of a spider, and then you freak out. And we teach you how to cope with that. And then we gradually make it up until you touch the spider.
Mm-hmm.
And you're okay. It's exactly what it sounds like, which is really great if you can walk somebody through those steps. But that's not possible for all forms of trauma.
Right.
Then came cognitive processing therapy, which is another evidence-based strategy. And cognitive brain, it's very focused on the brain. It's for those people who love to do their homework in between sessions. And you basically change the narrative and how you perceive yourself as a result of the trauma you've been through.
Mm-hmm.
And this works with that big event that changed everything, but it also works with the relational trauma, which is kind of what you were describing earlier, Ashley. And so, great, now we have two. And then in the 90s, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, came on the scene. And from that, they saw such powerful changes that people from the Vietnam War, so now we're 20 years out from their exposure to that trauma, are getting healing. And they can live functional lives. And they're not suicidal. And they're not horribly depressed. And they're not paranoid and putting tinfoil on the windows.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, oh. And so EMDR for the next 20 years was kind of the premier way of treating combat trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And because the VA and federal government funding allowed for the research, we had lots of research that says this is really working. And so then a bunch of therapists are like, well, what about my people? And so most therapists have a population that they really like to work with. And so then EMDR is then used in all these populations. And it turns out it's effective across the board. I mean, you have to tweak it a little bit, which is why you want to see the right therapist. But oh my goodness, people were getting better. And everybody got excited.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2009, accelerated resolution therapy. Unfortunately, the acronym is ART. Art therapy is a real thing. It is a very good thing. It is not what I'm talking about. We're not drawing pictures. Accelerated resolution therapy is similar to EMDR with some differences. In my opinion, it really focuses more on the body. So we get the memory for the brain, and then we get the sensations in the body.
Oh, interesting.
On
Okay.
purpose.
Okay.
EMDR gets it incidentally.
Yeah.
ART does it on purpose. And now we have a fourth strategy that is evidence-based, supported by the American Psychological Association for the healing of trauma. And we can see it happen because now we have functional MRIs and really awesome technology that allows us not only to see the injury, but now we can see how the healing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super powerful. Believe it or not, trauma's been around since the Greek philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
They've just talked about it in different ways.
Yeah.
And so over time, what has happened is that PTSD has become this death sentence. And if you have it, we don't want anybody to know about it. We don't want the insurance to find out about it. We definitely don't want our boss to know about it because now we're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be trusted. Nobody can rely on you. And in the first responder community, you're weak
Oh, yeah.
because you didn't suck it up, Buttercup.
Mm-hmm.
You got affected by it. But you don't actually get to choose whether or not you are actually traumatized by something. It just means that all the resources, internal and external to you, were overwhelmed. But now we also worry about what happens when we remember. And this is how the memory things change. Like, I don't want to think about something that makes me uncomfortable in my body. so I won't. I just won't.
Mhm.
So maybe you block it out, maybe you rewrite it a little bit. But if we're doing what we were talking about earlier, which is we make space to feel the things, we provide that soothing comfort. Believe it or not, going for a ride in a Corvette, especially if you're the driver,
Mhm.
is this wonderful mindfulness activity because you're focused on driving and what it feels like to feel the wheel, and maybe even sitting in the passenger seat, what it feels like to sit there with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
It's this lovely feeling of like, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really good. It's connecting. And that is healing. Not that you were in the midst of trauma,
Sure.
but someone can choose that is like, you know what? My person, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to talk about it. I don't even really remember what happened completely. Don't really want to. So let me go for a ride with my dad
Mhm.
because I will feel better when I get out of that car.
This is actually a really great lead into something that you and I spoke about before we hopped on the air about when you're in a situation with somebody that maybe has gone through something traumatic and you want to be there for them and you want to help them out, but you don't know what to say. And now you feel the pressure of like, well, I want to help them and carry their, the discomfort and I just don't know what to do. And you were saying that sitting next to somebody,
Yeah.
even without speaking, but just being close to them personally
Mhm.
in a car or, whatever
Yeah.
can actually really help somebody.
Yes, because they don't feel like they're alone. And it may not feel like they feel you there. I've talked to people who their person goes home and plays video games and it feels like they just totally check out.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, your body knows.
Right.
So Dan Siegel has done a really cool research on interpersonal neurobiology at a UCLA. And he talks about just how our bodies communicate with each other and how it literally changes our physiology. And so if somebody is just really amped up and they're
Mhm.
having trouble calming down and the way they're doing it is they're going to play video games and they're just going to check out of their body because they can't get it to calm down. If you sit beside them or in the room with them
Mm-hmm.
and you breathe on purpose, full exhales, and you stay calm, it will seep into their bodies too.
Mhm.
That is so crazy.
Mhm.
We're not fixing anything because people are not problems to solve. We are showing up for them and we're being there with them
Mm-hmm.
so that their body knows. Their brain may argue the point, but their body knows that they're not alone and that they're not too scary for you.
Mm.
That's a huge point because I feel like people, especially if they've been diagnosed with like PTSD, and then they're like, I am too scary for someone. Who's going to want somebody like me?
And I feel the
Because
need
I've got this thing.
to responsibly point out if they are dangerous, please don't sit with them.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Safety first.
Yeah. Right.
But somebody who's really struggling, somebody who has been told you cannot cry because that is weakness.
Mm-hmm.
There are many words out there in the first responder community that they use to describe someone that they are looking down on who is weak. I will stay with weak. But they can't let that show. And so the weirdest thing might happen is you're sitting there on the sofa with them and they're playing their video game is that there might be a tear running down their cheek. It's like a deer. Don't scare it. Just sit with it and know that that's what's happening. You can probably even watch their shoulders come down. They may
Mhm.
sit forward playing with their elbows on their knees while they're playing, and then they might sit back while they're playing. Like their body is going to let go of the stress that it holds because you are providing calm and you are providing you're the hot shower
Mm.
so that their body can go, oh, I'm safe here.
Man. See, I love this so much because there's a couple things. I know a big part of your core message is you're talking about people who think that they just are that way.
Yeah.
Either they've always been that way or an event has happened, or if they've been given the diagnosis of having a disorder,
Mhm.
this is how they are,
Mhm.
when it's really about what's happened to them.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but also what I love about this is everything you laid out, the history of treatment makes clear. And this example you just gave Ashley makes clear that healing isn't an if, it's just a matter of when, if you are engaged in the process
And you know how.
and you know how.
And in my experience and a lot of things, that's what we're missing. We're missing the how. Like, I want to get better. You want to get healthy. So you hired somebody to help you.
Right.
You talk to someone who knows how. And that I think is where therapists can get a bad rap is that they're just the person who knows how. I hope. And when you talk about like how to find a good therapist, but that's if you don't have a how, you can want all you want, but you're not going to get anywhere. It's like losing weight. Well, I got to stop eating sugar. Great. Do you know what to eat instead?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stop drinking to cope with my trauma. Great. Do you know what to do instead? Because that can actually be dangerous depending on how much you've been drinking.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it can be dangerous physically for the person who's been consuming the alcohol, can also be scary for the people who are used to them self-medicating and now they're not self-medicating anymore because the mood changes are real.
Mm-hmm.
They're very real. And in the first responder community, these people are literally superheroes. They put on that super suit and they can just shut off and detach. And so for families, it can be really confusing. Like, how do you go to work and people like you? And then you come home and I can't stand you.
Mm.
Well, some of it is you're their safe place, so they don't have to.
Right.
You're not going to fire them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're not going to sue them.
Right. And they're not in a life and death situation while they're interacting with you.
We'd like them to think that, yes.
Right.
Their bodies may not agree.
Right. Right. Seemed like that would make it a really important distinction, right?
Yes.
If this is not who you are, but this is what's happened to you, both for first responders and their families in this
Yes.
case. But then that means for any of us, right? Depending on what the dynamic is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so when you can answer the question, how, whatever it is that you're trying to do, longing to, want to do, how becomes a question to answer. If you can answer the question, how, so how do I heal from trauma? You give yourself space. You do things that soothe the discomfort in your body. Maybe you have to go and get somebody to help you do that because they know more hows. But when you know how, healing is possible.
Perfect. Wow. How about we just drop the mic right there for a second and go to our second break here on Staying Power. When we come back, as we always do on this show, we always like to end every episode with some practical things. Now, obviously, Denise has spoiled us with some examples of this already. But let's really dig into that on the backside of this as we finish up our conversation about trauma today with Dr. Denise Haselwood. We'll be back here in just a second on Staying Power.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Don't ask me to talk. There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacey Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
Make it a great day. Keep your dial on Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hi.
And visiting with us is Dr. Denise Haselwood. She is a trauma psychologist, and she's really, Ashley, she's blowing our doors off in here, and probably all of you who are listening as well with a lot of this. And we only have so much time at the end, so let's get right back to this and be talking about, just some more good things to do with this. But we were talking during the break, and Ashley, you had a really interesting topic you wanted to ask Denise about. So let's start there.
Well, as you've been mentioning a lot, obviously, about first responders, and maybe because it's dear to my heart because I'm a woman, and I'm like, how do first responders who are women, who are wired with so many emotions, men too, but we have a few extra wires. What we do. Anyways, how does that work when they are in such situations that are so traumatic and they're also juggling like their own emotions, and their emotions feel all that trauma that other people are going through that they're helping? What do they do with all of that?
Well, I
What
don't
do
wanna
you say
speak
for people with
I
that?
I don't wanna speak for all of them. In my experience with the folks that have come and sat on my couch and that I've had conversations with, it puts them in a bind because innately they may want to express empathy. We're not even talking
Mhm.
about their experience of trauma, just they wanna be empathic to a member of the community, and they hold back because, well, the guy next to them would make that assumption that they're soft or whatever it might be that they're thinking is that, we have to in the first responder community, even to some degree in the military community still, you have to play in the boys club and you have to be on the boys team.
Mhm.
And that means that you have to be that stoic, tough, badass who
Mhm.
isn't bothered by anything because that's the culture they work in. And for some women, if we've been raised to be expressive, whether that's with our words, whether that's with our faces, it gets restricted. And so in that sense, a little bit extra, Denise's opinion, might get shoved down,
Mhm.
and then they carry that too. So inherently, maybe they would say a lot of words and that would allow their brain and their body to process. But the culture says you can't do that, lady, so they don't.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's gotta be such a heavy load to carry often.
Mhm.
And it's a load that it's an invisible one that nobody else sees.
And again, Denise's opinion, if these women could be expressive, I don't think they'd be inappropriate. In
Mhm.
fact, I think they would have a lot of ways to help their peers simply by being the
Mhm.
example of this is how we work through things. A question I get a lot with first responders is like, I have to go call to call to call. And right now there are staffing shortages. I don't know per agency, but the ones that I'm aware of up and down the I-5 corridor, there's staffing shortages and they're super busy. So what do I do in between?
Mhm.
Death by 10,000 cuts is real,
Mhm.
but it only kill you if you don't heal them. And so finding things to do that take the moment behind the grocery store and take yourself out of service and just breathe or walk or close all the windows and scream. Like those kinds of things so that you get to experience the emotion that you need to experience
Mhm.
and then go back and do your job. Totally fine. But there's a layer here where, the extra wires,
Mhm.
the empathy, the softness
Mhm.
is not invited. And so the partners who are at home who happen to be female may also be trying to show that to their person, and their person is like, "Ew, no, weak," and it's not. My experience, weak people don't do therapy. Weak people don't feel. Only the strong can do that.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it is not for the faint of the heart.
Oh, no.
No, it's not. And it makes me wonder if changing that dynamic, like you said, you gotta play in the boys club,
Mhm.
right, in these communities, generally speaking,
Mhm.
is the answer to changing that dynamic, besides the male side of that being more aware
Mhm.
of the reality of the difference, is it kind of that universalism you're talking about of the ability to heal if one does that? So if you have men and women and who are healing, that's gonna help them be more open and cognizant
Yes.
of those differences. Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense.
And old school. So again, trying not to date myself too precisely, but people of a certain generation and the ones that came before us hold very tightly to those old school, "You do not feel because you're weak"
Right.
Mhm.
values. The next generation doesn't necessarily see it that way.
This is true.
And so if my people who are my age can get out of the way and maybe even be willing to listen and learn, it's not just gonna be the women who know how to talk about feelings in a way that's appropriate and healing.
Mm.
It's basically anybody who's brave enough to do it.
Oh, man. That'd be so helpful right now. And in general, going forward, for that to develop further and further.
And I don't mean like just word vomit and say all the things that come to mind without a filter or
Right,
anything like that.
right.
There's a learning curve here. Yes. But it takes courage to talk about how you feel and to be open and as you were saying JD earlier, being vulnerable.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
even sharing a win, somebody can rain on that parade.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. There's
Yeah.
always people out there ready to rain.
That's right. That is true. That is true. I love so much about this because there's a reframing that you're talking about here on a number of levels that I think matters. And talking about this as an injury
Mhm.
as opposed to a disorder, or this is something that's happened to you, this is not who you are. that language, that shift in language, particularly internally, would seem to me to be such a vital part of opening up the possibility that people see for their own healing.
Well, that's the hope.
Yeah.
So again, those Vietnam vets, they didn't know what was causing the symptoms, but the symptoms were the external thing that people could see and catalog. When we're talking about an injury, we now have the ability to see how the shape of your amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain, it's an almond shape, it's about the size of an almond in a healthy brain. In a traumatized brain, it's actually bigger. And then the hippocampus is smaller. And in a healthy brain, we have an almond-sized amygdala and a bigger hippocampus. You know, if there was a hippocampus, you would remember. It's the memory center.
Ah,
And so when it changes, we have distortions in memory.
okay.
So the amygdala is like keeping you safe, keeping you safe, keeping you safe. And so that is now making you hypervigilant, and we can see that on brain scans. And then after healing, so after a good EMDR therapist gets a hold of them and a good ART therapist gets a hold of them, CBT, CPT, and exposure, wherever you get your healing, it actually goes back to their anatomical size.
Wow.
We can see healing happen. And so now we can actually say it is an injury. You have been injured. You need this treatment. And following this treatment, we can show you that your brain is better.
It's like healing an infection.
That's so nice. Just brings a lot of hope for people that, I mean, for you were saying a segment or two ago about people in the different wars, it was 20 years removed that they have been living with their trauma, and they have just created their life around what their new environment is post those experiences, and they've lived with it for 20 years, but that they can still heal, that the body is still 20 years later is like still ready to heal.
Yes.
I'm ready when you are.
Yes. But the sad thing is that people don't know this.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Why isn't this more well known?
I would love the answer to that question myself.
Probably why you're giving a keynote talk about it.
That's really why I want to give a keynote talk about it.
That's why we're all going to the
It all
keynote.
comes together right here towards the end. Got it.
Because you can Google how do you heal from PTSD, and Google will give you a bunch of answers depending on what your algorithm is set up for. It'll give you answers for healing. I don't know that it's going to lay out for you the 4 strategies that are evidence-based for healing trauma, but it's going to tell you stuff. And it's not necessarily wrong. It's just a Google search. And it's not Dr. Google. So we have that out there. But most of the time, that's not what people are searching.
Right.
They're searching for other things. And so part of it is, this is again the how. How do we get the information out so that people know that there's hope? So people know that you don't have to stay this way? Because the other thing out in the first responder communities is, this is the job, man. You signed up for it. Like, it's only half a joke that you're going to have 5 marriages. And that your kids aren't going to talk to you as adults. And yet we have these extraordinarily brave men and women who sign up anyway. And they go out there and they every day. And sometimes, 16, 17 hours every day for 14 days straight, depending on their agency staffing. And they're doing this anyway, knowing that this was a possibility, knowing that this is the culture, because the old guys tell them when they get there. So if they didn't know going in, somebody's going to tell them, or they're going to see it, because most agencies have an angry old guy. And everybody's just like, oh, that's Fred, or oh, that's Mark, or oh, that's Bob. And somehow they're always dudes. But there are the angry women out there too. They're just not as visible, just by sheer numbers.
Wow.
So it seems to me that, I can see the passion, with this. This keynote, is this for first responder communities? Is that who you are really wanting to bring this message to that you're sharing with us today?
First responder, military, people who spend their professional lives in an ER, people who literally deal with life and death on the regular, because their exposure to things that are traumatic is just at a higher scale than the rest of us. And honestly, I'll talk to anybody who wants to know more about PTSD and the fact that it's an injury and you can heal. But first responder agencies are the ones that I would love to get in front of and be able to talk them through a lot of what we talked about today.
Got it. Great. And so where can people get that information about you and about this talk? Is there someplace that anybody who's interested in knowing more about this or wants to book you for this can go to find out?
DeniseHaselwood.com.
That's pretty simple.
Hazelwood is spelled with an S, not a Z.
Right.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we will
Please
put
tune
it in
in.
the show notes. Yeah, we will put it in the show notes. That's great. All right. So I know, Ashley, you and I both want to know more about one thing.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yeah. So just kind of a fun way to wrap up today, even though it might go a lot further afield. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, we've heard you mention a time or two before that healing is weird.
It is weird.
What is that supposed to mean?
So when somebody's life has literally been altered
Mhm.
from its original trajectory by trauma and all the things that we've talked about, like they've adapted to survive. When you change that, life gets weird. And I had a medic come and see me at one point, and they came into my office. And this is a person who's like, Denise, I didn't want to come today. I was so anxious driving here. And I'm like, I know, because we were going to process trauma. I'm like, yeah. And one day they walk in and they sit down and they're like, healing is weird. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, my brain is calm. And I'm uncomfortable with that. Now, the irony is that that's what they asked for in the beginning. I just want to be calm. I want my brain to be quiet. And now that it's happening, because it's a change from the status quo, even though it's a good change, it's weird when the racing thoughts are not there anymore. When you feel like everything is going so fast all the time, and then all of a sudden it slows down. Because the brain in time is very bizarre. And so then they can think clearly and calmly, even in crisis situations. This person was even worried that their spouse was going to think they didn't care about them anymore because they no longer fought.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not yelling at them. I'm afraid he will think I don't love him.
You're like, let me know how that goes.
How about we ask him?
Yeah, right. Simple, direct question.
Let's just check. But the idea behind that was just, I feel so different in my own skin. I know that I'm moving through the world in such a different way. I'm not sure how people around me are going to take it. And the worst thing for that medic would be if someone took it the wrong way. Because they just feel weird. They don't feel like they've always felt. Constantly keyed up, racing thoughts, can't sleep. And now this person is not on any kind of psych meds, not on any kind of sleep meds, and sleeps through the night unless they have to pee.
Right.
Wow.
Because that's the other thing trauma does, is it disrupts sleep.
Right, which disrupts a whole lot. If
And then
sleep
there's
is
a whole
disrupted.
ripple.
Right, absolutely. Wow. Okay. Well, that's a great way to put a bow on this episode of Staying Power. Thank you so much, Denise, for coming in
Thanks for having
and talking
me.
to us about this. It was a delight to have you. And we will put a link to Denise's website, Denise Haselwood. That's with an S, not a Z. DeniseHaselwood.com. You can find out more about the keynote talk that she's putting together there. And like she said, she's all about resources. So, there's lots out there. So, Denise, we're probably going to ask you to come back at some point. Particularly, we want to hear how this talk goes.
Wonderful.
And what you're getting from
I would
it.
love
So,
to come back.
Right. And thank you to all of you listening to today's episode of Staying Power. Remember, if you missed any of this episode or our other episodes, you can get this as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube and at our radio home, 1150 AM KKNW. And at all of those sites in the show notes, you will not only get episode descriptions, but also notes on things we've talked about, in this case, Denise's website. And you can also find all the ways you can communicate with Ashley and myself, particularly our email, stayingpowershow@gmail.com, and our social media feeds. We will be back with another episode next week of Staying Power. We're going to talk about something else. Not sure we're going to be able to match the energy of this one, but we're going to do our best.
We will try.
And as I always am, I am just JD.
I'm always Ashley.
And we will see you next week. Thanks, Denise.
Bye.
Bye.